All right, so moving on now to introducing Rod, who has been in the electronic system industry since 1995. Rod, we go way back together. And specifically specializing in healthcare systems prior to 2001. Rod has a part in designing and implementing complete electronic packages in well over 180 different healthcare facilities scattered all over North America. Rod is a certified engineering technologist, registered with the Association of Science and Engineering Technology Professionals of Alberta, and a registered applied science technologist with the Applied Science Technologists and Technicians of BC. Prior to Rod's formal engineering education, he was a technician and project manager for many years, gaining much hands-on experience installing many different types of technologies. Something that I couldn't do. Rod is well versed in all types of telecommunications, life, safety, and electronic security systems, and more importantly, can integrate the many different types of systems together to provide a reliable, easy-to-use package for end users to utilize for many years of issue-free use. So help me to welcome Rod.
Thank you. Yes, I am an electronics geek. Many years back. Been doing this for quite some time. We're a bit over time here, so I'll try to pick up the pace a bit here. We don't need to go through all my stuff. We heard that. I've been doing this for 20 years, over 20 years. So electronics implementation, electronic systems design, hospitals, seniors living facilities, all different types. And I'm very passionate about what I do, and I love what I do. I love trying to make, part A talk to part B and then talk to part S properly, and making all that integration work properly. So today I want to talk about electronics in general in seniors living facilities. It was kind of vague a bit, the title, where it was just talking about electronics in general. So considering the staff that are here, the different types of positions you're in, I kind of narrowed it down more to the nurse call systems in sites, because there's a lot of different technologies nowadays, and a bit of a history which I'm going to run through. Back in the day, the old systems, I don't know if there's any managers or nurses are here that remember this, the old call bell wall that had all the lights and the numbers there. You'd have that at the nursing station. Your resident would pull the pull cord. You're lucky if you had a dome light, and this thing would have the worst buzz in the world, like it'd sure wake you up, right? And that's where you would see what if a resident needed attention. So there was not a lot to go wrong with these things. They were so simple. It was pretty much just power supplies, switches, and lights. That's it. There's not a lot to go wrong with that. So these systems were very, very reliable. But of course, systems have evolved far since then. So the next step is microcontrollers came out. So that's when we get into a lot more of the cooler features, right? We have things like this with consoles, where we would have the desk phone showing all the alerts on the screen. We could send the alerts out to pocket pagers. I don't know if any of you remember carrying around pocket pagers with the alarm systems. And it added cool things like having the marquees down the hallway, so you could look up and see the lit up display saying like room 203 pull cord alarm. And one thing it added too was two-way voice. So you could actually, from that nursing station console, you can talk back to the resident and do a little bit of triage, figure out if they're like having issues breathing, or if they just drop the remote control for their TV, something like that, and you can prioritize accordingly. So then in the early 2000s, software-based systems came out. So there's a lot of different systems out there that would use different types of logic controllers, electronic controllers with microcontrollers in them. They would connect back to software. But back in the early 2000s, the software was a bit buggy, and you had some issues with things with computers, like Windows updates with rebooting the computer. You'd have some virus issues, maybe hard drives, because back in the day the hard drives for solid state, they spun all the time. And these systems had to run 24/7. If this computer went down, your system was down. It just wouldn't work because it was based on the logic in that computer, the computer itself doing the thinking for the system. It wasn't based on the what we would call the edge side, as in past systems with the microcontrollers. But because we have these computers, we can do a lot more cooler things, like pendant systems that do actual wireless locating, that could take signals from multiple different receivers, and based on algorithms and math, they could actually narrow it down to a specific, maybe like a wing or a room in a facility to tell you where somebody's pressing a pendant. Of course, logs and reports. So that's very important nowadays that we're talking about with being able to show your response time from the time the resident initiated the alarm from the time that your care aides actually attended to that resident. So all that stuff can be logged now. Different things like escalations. If the calls are going to this group of care aides, maybe on pocket pagers or wireless phones, and if it's not reset after X amount of minutes, then it would kick over maybe to the other wing, or maybe to the LPN or the RN on staff that can actually go and deal with it. And then a few other things like real-time locating. There's systems out now that can actually track where a person is at any time, not when they press the button to initiate a call, but just you can pull up a dashboard and actually see where your residents are at any time in the building. So all this was needed, was possible because of this software, being able to process on a computer. A lot of this has gotten more reliable lately because now we can have massive servers with virtual machines built in that have redundant copies of the operating system that can clone themselves whenever a change is made. So it can actually be smart enough so it can detect when a certain instance of an operating system goes down and another one can take over. Things along with that, and having, of course, redundant hard drives, configurable operating systems nowadays where you can shut off things like Windows updates so you don't get that computer rebooting at 3 o'clock in the morning and bringing everything down. So sure, back in the day, initially there were some issues, but now things have changed a lot with regards to the computer-based systems. So next, in the early 2010s, we kind of got into the information age. There was a lot of companies out there advertising these dementia tracker packages. There was companies that would put sensors everywhere. Seriously, they'd have a sensor kind of like what TalkTech does, but way more archaic, of course. They'd have motion detectors in the bathrooms, a switch on the toilet seat, see if somebody sat down on it. Even if it's like assisted, they'd have switches on the refrigerator door, motion detectors everywhere. And all this data would be logged, whenever a resident got up, walked around the room, what time it was, how long they sat in their lazy boy for watching the hockey game, how many times they had to get up. And it was information overload. All this stuff was recorded, put in huge databases, but a lot of you know they are from facilities. Who has the time to look at this stuff? This information sure was powerful, but there wasn't any smart software packages or algorithms out there that could analyze this data and be able to tell you, okay, this person's kind of on the decline, or this person's actually doing better, maybe because they changed the medication. There's just not time for that, right? There's nobody that could actually go through all this stuff. So a lot of these systems, I've seen some of them still in place. I was just on the island actually a few months back up in Campbell River, and they have one of these systems. And if anything, actually, they're still using it right now, but they've really narrowed it down to just using it for more when people get out of the bed or go into the bathroom at night. And I can tell you, even then, they have a triggering or nurse call system, and the staff are just getting overloaded with calls. They're getting alarm fatigue because it's just too much information. It's great to have this stuff, but if it's not used properly or analyzed or being able to be applied to a specific use case, it's just no need to have this stuff. So a couple things I want to talk about with regards to certifications for systems nowadays is there's a couple important things with regards to the product line you choose and the integrator that you choose. So one thing that's really nice is Underwriters Laboratory. I'm sure we've all heard of UL, ULC, if something's ULC listed. In the past few years, they've actually come up with standards for nurse call systems. So when it comes to something that's more hospital grade, long-term care, it's UL 1069 certified. So there's a handful of nurse call systems out there that have this certification, and I tell you, it's quite stringent to get this certification. You know, the manufacturers have to send all their devices in. I've seen videos where they're dropping seriously bowling balls on consoles, pouring water, just to show what the redundancy and how tough these systems are, to make sure that they can put their stamp of approval on them, as well as being able to have things like proper battery backups, power supply redundancy, stuff like that, where if the system has a catastrophic failure maybe on one leg or one wing, the rest of the system continue to operate. It won't bring everything down. So that's what it comes down to for wired systems. So UL 1069 is a certification for, like I said, more long-term care and acute care hospitals. So UL 2560, that is one that's more come out in recent years due to wireless. So a lot of systems out there now are running on wireless pendants, even wireless nurse call devices on the bedside. And before UL 2560 came out, there was a lot of companies out there just making their own system with their own transmitters, their own proprietary protocols, and nothing was supervised. A device would have a low battery, you wouldn't know. So UL 2560 really brings up the standards for wireless systems, where these devices have to always be checking in. They got to be pinging the main system like once every hour to say, hey, I'm here. This is my battery level. I'm here. Because otherwise, you just wouldn't know. And these systems, with the software, it will notify you. And I'm sure a lot of you have this system where, if you got a low battery, it will tell you. You don't have to just guess if it happens. So that's one thing I really appreciate nowadays, is these two listings. But that being said, there's no building code standard for these standards at all in BC or in Alberta. I can't speak about the rest of Canada. And it's very frustrating. There's, sure, when new facilities are being built, an electronic engineering firm can specify, when they put up the specs in the tender, they can say system must be UL 1069 certified, system must be UL 2560 certified. But I can tell you, licensing doesn't actually require this at all. Really, licensing requires that you have a system. That's it. Some kind of nurse call, some kind of call system. And then you get people getting systems from overseas, maybe one-off systems that the company goes out of business, they can't get parts anymore, costs a lot of money. So that's one thing that integrators like myself are trying to lobby the government to see if they can really push those standards into the building code, so you get proper systems that are reliable, vetted, and have longevity. So on the technician and integrator side of things, there's a great government body called Technical Safety BC. I moved here from Alberta 7 years ago, and this was a big learning curve for me. I'll tell you, in Alberta, when it comes to putting in electronic systems, installing them, running cables, it's the Wild West. Anybody can do it. There's no code. Besides, high voltage stuff, electrical, but low voltage electronics, anybody can put in a system. You can go to an alarm system store, buy an alarm system, and call yourself an alarm system dealer. But here in BC, there's Technical Safety BC, which protects all of us as a consumer and make sure that we follow certain standards. All my technicians, most technicians of most reputable integrators have the proper certifications with Technical Safety BC. Whenever a project happens, we have to actually apply for a permit and take out a permit. At the end of the job, we have to close out the permit, and an inspector from Technical Safety BC has to come in and just check out the install. They don't go into every single room or anything like that, but just make sure everything's reputable. So one thing I strongly recommend you do is, if you're ever thinking of doing anything electronic, and I'm not just talking nurse call, I'm talking, this covers things like getting a new phone system, getting a Wi-Fi system, a computer network, a camera system, a card access system. Anything like that, you actually have to, legally, by law, you have to go through this. If not, you can be fined. And there's a lot of companies out there, like I said, that are just going to alarm system stores and selling you camera systems. They shouldn't be doing that. So just be leery about that, and you can actually go to the Technical Safety BC website and there's a search box, and you can actually search the address of your facility and see, what permits were taken out. And you can kind of line that up for when you got this system or that system, and see if this company that you hired actually paid for the permit and is legit. Okay, so a little bit on kind of the title of my talk about bleeding edge. When I first got into this industry, I was really gung-ho and fresh, and I wanted to always use the latest, greatest technology. The coolest stuff that just came out, the bleeding edge stuff, and I tell you, I got burned many times. I got burned because I would choose product lines that maybe just came out that for a company that wasn't that experienced, a manufacturer that was a startup, and I had some problems. There was a lot of, that was before UL 1069 or UL 2560. But yeah, it caused a lot of issues. So over the years, my mindset has really, really changed to stuff that is very reliable, proven, that's been out in the industry for quite some time. And one thing that I like to recommend is finding a product line that evolves. How long has the product been in business? The company that manufactures the product, how long have they been in business? And has there been different generations of the product? If there's been different generations, you can tell that they were successful with one product, they put the R&D dollars back into it and made a next generation, and it evolved. If you see that, that's how you can tell if there's a good company, because they're reinvesting their profit and trying to make their system better and trying to make it more compatible with technology today. Believe it or not, I actually saw this the other day, and that kind of scared me. It was an Amazon Alexa device that some nameless integrator is advertising on their website, where a resident can actually say, Alexa, call for help. And there's some issues to that, because I know a lot about these devices, and I know particularly what they need. They need a constant Wi-Fi connection, and the thing that really is scary is they need a constant internet connection. Because the voice processing isn't actually done on the Alexa itself, it actually sends it out to their servers to decrypt and then do the trigger from there. So you can imagine if you're a resident in a room and you're having chest pains and you keep saying, Alexa, call for help, and there's a network issue, a Wi-Fi issue, the internet's down, the internet's slow, you're just not going to get your help. So, one thing I'll talk about, I think, in the next slide is about when you have your life safety systems, having it all on premise, having it, off the cloud, on premise, so if your phone lines ever get severed, if your internet ever gets severed, it will work on premise. One thing too that I ran into, I was one of the first adopters of wearable fall sensors. I don't know if any of you have any fall sensors, like wearable ones in any of your sites. They're more rare, but I adopted those early on, and I had some issues because basically it would be like an oversized pendant that a resident would wear. And let's say that I'm Mary Jones and I'm going up to my countertop. If I go up to it and my pendant just hit the countertop, that would trigger a false alarm, like I fell. If I'm Bob Smith and I'm wearing my pendant and I plop myself down in my lazy boy to watch the game, that would trigger a false alarm. If I even go and sit on the toilet, that would trigger a false alarm. So fall sensors, I've had a lot of requests for people trying to ask me if I sell those. They exist and they're available, but I won't sell them because I do not want to have alarm fatigue for your carriers, right? All these different alarms will just drive them nuts. So there's some other things there. Like I said, we're kind of running out of time, but one thing in particular, as more and more things are going IP-based, network-based, pretty much everything now, your nurse call, your phones, your camera system, your card access system, all this stuff is running on your network. Make sure that you're employing, a proper IT contractor, or you have real IT personnel. I say that because if all these systems are sharing the same backbone, the same information, you really need to set up your network properly so that certain devices are prioritized over others. If you have your residents sharing your network, maybe you have an iPad and they're talking to their grandchildren on that, and you have maybe a Wi-Fi phone that gets the nurse call alerts, you want to make sure, of course, that phone has priority over, Grandma Jones talking to her grandchildren on Zoom or something like that. And that's not easy. You really have to have a reputable IT contractor or IT employees that can actually set up those rules. They're called quality of service settings, where you can actually prioritize one thing over another. Some sites even ask us to completely physically separate the network. We would have our own network physically just based for all of our life safety stuff, and then they would use their other network for their data, their Zoom, their Wi-Fi, Netflix, so be it. So that's one thing in particular that you got to watch out for, because nowadays everything is going network based. So I'll run through this quickly, and they kind of tie together here. So when you're choosing a product line, and I'm trying to make this very vague with regards to, it could be nurse call, phones, camera systems, whatever. One thing you want to keep in mind is how many years has this product been in existence. Like I said on the last slide before, are they reinvesting their profit? Are they doing generations of products? Are they always upgrading and making their products better? What kind of warranty do they have? Do they have regional representation? Like Vancouver's a big enough city that it should have representation, a sales rep or sales engineering for just about every product line to come visit you and show you about their system. Does the product have 24/7 dealer technical support? Because a lot of times you will call your dealer if you have an issue with the system like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then if the dealer can't figure it out or has issues, will they be able to call the manufacturer, in the middle of the night and get help? Or will they have to wait, if it's like a Saturday morning, will they have to wait till Monday to be able to get a hold of them? So that's important. Making sure that this particular system's been installed elsewhere in the region. Not just, sure, maybe they have, hundreds of installs in Quebec, but is there actually an install here in BC? More than one dealer for the product? Are you stuck with just this one integrator? Maybe you had a falling out or you felt they weren't giving you good service, or do they allow other dealers to carry this product line? Software licenses, how much do they charge ongoing? That's one thing that you have to budget, ongoing software licenses. Ongoing fees, and do they have the proper certifications? Like I said about the UL, but one thing too you got to watch out for is Industry Canada and Canadian Standards Association certification. I got a call about a year ago for a site that got a code white staffed arrest system put in. It was a kind of a mental health building, and the company that put it in went out of business. They had me look at it, and I started looking at the stuff I've never seen before, and I saw it didn't have any kind of Industry Canada certifications or UL certifications, so I had to kind of take some pictures of the circuit boards and Google it, and I saw it was some stuff out of Israel that this company had just bought, straight from Israel, and installed it in this site, and it was up in Kelowna, and it was on a frequency band that wasn't even legal in Canada. So yeah, you got to be careful that you're getting stuff that is certified to be used in Canada. Then the same thing with the integrator. You want to make sure how many years in business. Are they registered with Technical Safety BC? That's one thing you can tell I feel very passionately about. Can they do all the work in your site end to end, or do they use subcontractors? Like a lot of electronics integrator companies, they'll be a dealer for a certain product, but they won't know how to wire it, or they won't know how to do the IT programming. So do you have a company that can do everything end to end with their own employees, or do they have to bring in subcontractors to do some of the work for them? Okay, so into the future. So one question I thought of the other day, the top line there, remember when we used to buy software in a box? Remember when we used to need if we needed a copy of Microsoft Office or an antivirus, we'd go to Staples or remember Future Shop and actually buy a piece of software in a box? That just blows my mind. That doesn't exist anymore. Nowadays, everything's going subscription based, right? It's been a hard thing for me in this industry to wrap my head around, but we're all used to it personally. We all, have our XM radio, our Apple Music, our Netflix, so be it. We're paying every month for something, all of us. So there's been a real shift in the industry. With IT started it. IT went subscription based for just about everything, and now a lot of these systems are subscription based. So it's a real paradigm shift of being able to switch over from that one-time big capital expenditure, dropping your big wad of cash on a system, that you hope will last you 5-10 years and not even thinking about it anymore. A lot of these systems, they have ongoing licensing fees, software maintenance agreements, preventative maintenance agreements. So there has to be a real shift to taking these big systems, these phone systems, these nurse call systems, away from that one-time capital expenditure where maybe you got a grant or the government gave you a wad of cash for some reason because they're trying to get elected or something. And trying to switch it over to ongoing operating. Like even my company, Terracom, we've even adjusted. Sure, our systems cost us upfront a big number, but we're now financing it over 5 years, so we can spread the costs to kind of make it like an ongoing operating expense. What else here? So with regards to cloud-based and on-premise systems I was talking about earlier, one thing I feel very strongly about, as you can tell, is when it comes to having life safety systems, like the systems that actually enable your residents to request assistance, whether it be by pressing a pendant or a call bell button or a pull cord in a bathroom, that stuff really needs to be on premise. All that electronics, all that hardware, all that software, most proper systems out there with the certifications UL 1069 or UL 2560, they all reside on premise. They all will work if the phone lines are severed, if the network internet is severed, it's fine. You will still get those calls through to your Carriage wireless phones. Certain value add things, like I'm sure a lot of you use point-click care or some other EMR system, of course, SleepSense, wonderful product, right? It's a value add system. Those are systems that aren't necessarily life safety, so yeah, those kind of systems are fine if they reside in the cloud. If anything, it's cheaper. You don't want to have a whole server on your site just for your SleepSense system. You could use their cloud servers. It's much better, and that's shifting back to the monthly operating expenses, right? And I talked a lot about this on the last slide, but I can't say enough about when you're doing systems, make sure that you do it properly with the network guy. You wouldn't believe, I don't know what it is, but I go to so many little standalone seniors lodges and long-term care sites, that aren't, part of the bigger names like Chartwell or Rivera. And I don't know why, but it's always the accountant. It's always the bean counter guy. That's always the networking guy. I don't know why. Maybe they're good with numbers or something, IP addresses, Right, Jamil? That's you, right? Accountant guy. But they're always, it always seems to be the money guy that takes care of the network. And, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're starting to put life safety systems on your network, where your network does the same thing as a Zoom call to grandma, you want to separate that. You want to make it more reliable. You want to prioritize your life safety system over everything else.
Everyone else is yours.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I kind of went through this quick because I knew we were kind of over time here, but anytime if any of you ever have any questions, or my card's back at the desk there, I'm more than willing to consult on any systems. I have a company based out of Kelowna, but we have a branch in the Lower Mainland here, as well as some employees on the island. We can assist you with any of your electronic systems. One of our catalogs, I think, is in every one of these gift bags, so you kind of see all the scopes of work we do. But thanks for your time, and we'll see if we have any questions here for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm blown away by your passion for this technology stuff, because math and is not my forte, not at all. But thank you so much. So are there any quick questions for Rod? Or we're happy to have questions over at his table later too. So there's two options. But any questions now? Top of mind questions that have to come out? No? Okay, awesome. But thanks again, Rod. And thank you to everyone who shared today. As you know, the whole hope today was to provide you with some new insights on other opportunities that are out there to best support the people we're caring for. And as you know, the prevalence of, worldwide, the population is growing, but the prevalence of dementia care, from where I come from, is also on the rise. And I think it's wise to have health leaders and those that are passionate in this field to start thinking about taking some actions that we can do that will make a positive difference for the health, the safety, and the happiness of the people we serve. So thank you again for being here, everyone.